This week on the Media Boss Podcast.
During the pandemic, I just decided it was time to do something new and start to leverage all of that amazing training I had during that time, but start to help the next generation of leaders do something differently.
That makes sense. So when you say do something.
Media Boss Podcast is brought to you by two of our new partners. One is Pantheon. I can't wait to tell you about them later. And brought to you by Convert and Flow. You're going to learn so much about them. But now it's time for the Media Boss Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Media Boss Podcast. I'm Dr. Barrett Matthews. Look, I am excited. You guys know what I'm going to say, right? You know I'm going to say I have a great show for you, and you know I have a great guest. Well, I am excited. Let me tell you about this guest I have today. She is a recovering corporate executive. I am dying to know what that means, recovering corporate executive. But she's also an author and motivational speaker, and she's a life and business resiliency expert. Now, when I was writing that down, I had to make sure I got the spelling of resiliency right. Some of you know what I'm talking about here. But I want to bring to you today the host of the podcast, Stand Up and Stand Out, none other than Nikki Green. Nikki, welcome to the Media Boss Podcast.
Oh, thank you. That's a good intro, and I have a lot to live up to now.
It's all you. How do you have to live up to you? Now, I do want to find out though, because you knew what I was going to lead with. What is a recovering corporate executive?
Well, there's a lot of us out here now. Many of us call this our pandemic pivot or whatever, new buzz phrase we have. But, I had a great career in Silicon Valley, 20 years at lots of the top companies. And, it had its roller coaster ups and downs. And during the pandemic, I just decided it was time to do something new and start to leverage all of that amazing training I had during that time, but start to help the next generation of leaders do something differently.
That makes sense. So when you say do something differently, what does that mean?
I really had this challenge with the way leadership led, and it really wasn't even. It was sort of this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde leadership, where people were one thing in front of the camera and another thing behind closed doors and in conference rooms. And what I really hope to help the next generation do is become a leader where you're authentic no matter the situation.
Oh, gosh, because I have a media background and I've seen that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. Like, oh, boy, I could tell you stories, Nikki. Some of them are people you know. But we're not going to go there today on the Media Boss Podcast. What we're going to do is talk about what Nikki has going on. So one thing I'd like to ask you about is your writing. So you're an author.
I am an author. I didn't expect to be an author when I was young. My teachers were like, man, you're terrible at writing. It sounds like you're talking. And when I wrote my first book, that was the thing everybody loved. They said, I feel like I'm sitting down and having a conversation with you. And so I really got inspired and met lots of other authors that live in the Chicago area. And so I have my second book, Chameleon Mindset, out now. And it's about adapting to change in times of chaos.
Well, cool. How timely. How timely is that? Wow. So, okay, first of all, I think it's interesting that sometimes teachers will tell us things that really will destroy dreams. Yeah. And I'm glad that you saw past that, because, otherwise people would not know your message, and you're able to help people through your writing. And I think that that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Explain to me, like when you were first writing it, was that teacher's voice in your head?
Absolutely. I was really enjoying the creative process, which, as you can tell by me, I'm always a little creative. But when I got to the editing, it created this fear inside of me. I was just like, oh, I don't want people to judge my writing. So you're writing a book. People are going to read it and they're going to judge it. You better start getting it.
That's a good way of looking at it.
And so I really had to start talking myself through that process. And so then I just got more bold and I started learning. And I said, no, take this as a good process. Feedback, learn, get better. And it's a growth mindset that can help all of us, no matter what new, test that we're trying to tackle.
I like that. So was the second book easier or just as challenging?
It was a lot harder.
Really? Okay, do tell.
Yeah, well, it's twice the length. So one thing is just twice as much writing. But I wrote so much, then it did a lot more editing, which was a lot more painful.
Well, yeah. You learn a lot too from the first book, and it may take longer the second time because now you've learned what not to do, what to do, what to work. Yeah, I get it.
Exactly. Well, in this one, I really wanted to teach. The first one was a lot of stories. It was fun. It was kind of what was going on, and it was real things that happened in my life, milestones that got me to where I was. This one, I really want to help make sure that there's a connection to the reader and that the reader is getting something out of it. And of course, there's still some funny stories.
Now, the second book, is it out now?
Yes, it's out now, and we're in the process of building also an online course, which will be fantastic. So people will have an interactive journal where they can continue to work through the exercises and build some mental resilience in their life.
Cool. So I know you said you want the audience to have a little bit more input. So are you getting feedback from it?
Yeah, so we're doing some beta testing of the course because
Okay,
we
okay.
want people really real time doing the exercises. We've made the videos super short, TikTok sized, so that people can
Size.
watch them and then actually go do the work. So many online courses are long, 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 and then nobody ever finishes them. They're usually 10 to 12% finish rate.
Yeah.
We want everyone to finish this course and really make the changes in their life that they're looking for.
I like that. I like that. So the first book, was that more of just letting them learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, when I started moving from my corporate career into motivational speaking, I said, well, I have to have a platform. Someone has to know what the heck I'm talking.
That's a good point. Another good point you make.
So my first book is called I Laugh in the Face of Danger, which
That is a great title.
which is the story of my life, of all the ups and downs of starting with 6 parents, moving 9 times to 12 different schools.
Whoa.
A lot of change. But that change created a resilience within me that allowed me to change in a positive way as I got older in my career and in my personal life.
So now this exiting corporate America, did this how long ago did this happen?
Right during the pandemic.
I was wondering that.
2020.
That's why I asked the question. I was wondering that. So let me get this straight for those of you who are paying attention to this. So since 2020, you have basically changed careers and written 2 books.
Yeah, actually wrote 3. There's another one. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Don't let anybody stop you from what you can do. This one's a fiction book just because we thought we'd mix it up.
I like that. I like that. Wow. See, and I'm glad I asked that question because I really want people to understand is that because there's so many things we tell ourselves to stop us from doing. She just did this all in the last couple of years. So what's your cue?
We're all here for motivation, kids.
Right. I mean, that's an amazing thing. So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this next question, but is that when you started the podcast too?
It was. So literally 30 days after I finished my first book, I decided to start a podcast. Someone casually said to me, hey, it's still a pandemic. You can't go in person. And I wanted to be on stage. And they said, you know what? You can do virtual stages, but you know what you can also do? You can be on podcasts and you can meet really cool people like this, right? And so I said, well, better than that. Why just be on other people's podcasts? I could do that, sure. But I can also have my own podcast.
Oh, Nikki, I tell people this every day. And then, see, here's the way I look at it, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Something that you love is so easy to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hit record, I'm just saying, if you hit record, you got yourself a podcast. Yeah, you may want to doctor up or dress it up a little bit, but you got a podcast. And
exactly.
Your audience wants you. They don't want someone else. So I love that. I love that. And please, the name of your podcast again.
Stand Up and Stand Out.
Okay. So guys, make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're leaving her nice reviews, all that stuff. Yeah. We want to make sure. We want to make sure Nikki gets some love from the Media Boss podcast audience. Now, I want to find out, because I got to go back to this.
Uh-oh.
I got to go back. We're going to go back to the pleasantries too, but I got to find out. So the recovery corporate executive, what is it that you needed to recover from exactly?
Yeah, well, definitely a lot of toxic leadership that was happening even before the pandemic. So what happened at the end of 2019 is I got a new boss who came in basically to tear apart the team and, clean house, as it happens many, many times in corporate America. Yeah. And it was just bad from start to finish. So even before the pandemic happened, I said, I got to get out of here.
Okay. I didn't say that was going to be a quit. Was that because of the pandemic? So was it?
It wasn't. It was definitely a domino effect. And I just saw the lack of leadership skills, happening in the company. And I was just incredibly disappointed. And, people were knocking down my door to have me go to different companies and I was interviewing nonstop. And then the pandemic happened and there was a little bit of a pause, but I just said, you know what? I need to pause.
Yeah.
I need to take a fresh start and relook at my life and what's important to me and making sure I'm really giving back and doing the things that are important, for me.
Yeah. So were you scared?
I was terrified. I was terrified. Yeah. So the first month I had a paid sabbatical, so I was fine. And then that money ended.
Sabbatical, huh?
Yeah. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm unemployed. What do I?
Oh, wow. Yeah. 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 That's real. That's real. And it's real for a lot of people.
It's real and it's real scary. And so I started working through my own personal fear about
Mhm.
what it takes to build a business and really put yourself out there. And that's what continued to inspire my writing and the podcast and things like that.
So being a life and business resiliency coach, I love that. I love that. I really do. So I want to separate. So tell us the difference between helping someone in life versus business.
Yeah, a lot of times people come to me because they know they have something in their career that's challenging, or they're going to start a new business. And so they're trying the entrepreneur path. But a lot of times what's underneath the surface is also some life goals that they're probably afraid to talk about, afraid to share. We're always very much putting on that persona and say, oh, well, here's me. This is my job. This is my career. These are the things I'm doing, money I'm making, car I'm buying. But we forget some of those personal goals and we don't always want to share them. And so it's great that I get to do both. Usually people come in the door through business and then we end up doing a more holistic help for them.
Okay. Okay. So do you find that, well, first of all, how do you find your clients?
My clients find me.
Yeah. I think you all don't know how, well, if you follow this podcast, you know how much that means to me because I'm all about you not going around trying to find your clients, but making it so they can find you. So I love her saying that, right? I did not pay her to say that. So talk about how do they find you?
Well, it's really about exposure. It's about being everywhere. And so those are the things I really started to learn. And another thing that was a big challenge and shift for me as I left my corporate job. My corporate job, again, there was a persona and a way you were supposed to be. Here it was like, no, I get to be the real me. Are you ready? But it was great. And people say they feel like they already know me, whether they've read my books, they've listened to the podcast or anything else in between. They see me out there, just the real me, whether I'm running, I'm playing with the kids, I'm actually doing business. They see a mix of all of it and they see that I'm a real person and I'm here to connect and actually help them, not just be one internet guru that, they know something and they don't know a damn thing.
Right. So what's cool is that, once again, I did not pay her to say this. And she doesn't even know this. But one of the people that listen to my podcast, they know a slogan I go by is be everywhere all at once. And she said, I'm telling you guys, this is why you need to know this, because I love that, being everywhere. So in being everywhere for your business, are you finding that you're getting different groups of people that you might not have gotten in touch with earlier otherwise?
Absolutely. I really started because I saw so many young people coming from all these top universities into these top Silicon Valley companies, but they were missing social skills and some of the basics.
Yeah.
So my real original focus was there and that's been fantastic. But what I found is there's a lot of the next level, the first time managers, the first time entrepreneurs,
Oh, wow.
people actually leaving maybe their job and semi-retiring, wanting to maybe start a new career. And so it's been great that I've been able to help people in all different walks of life go through those major milestone transitions because a lot of the same fears exist and the same, I shoulds are stuck in their mind and helping them make those first steps.
So how has your podcast helped you as far as business?
Well, I've met a lot of great people.
Well, there you go.
And I say podcasting is a little bit like the old school Comic-Con conventions where people were really, they loved the craft, right? And they were just so geeky about it that they want to share. And so I've been going to podcast conventions. I'm speaking at PodFest in a couple of weeks. And all these different things, you just really get to meet real people. You get to hear their stories and you get to collaborate. And it's fantastic.
That is cool. Because but you're right. You do get to meet some amazing people like I just did today. But it's fun because you get to be creative. You get to be genuine. And like I said, you get to sit around and talk about what you love. It's so much fun for those of you who are interested in becoming a podcaster. It's something you should definitely consider. Now, with the podcast and with your books and even the course, because see, this is something you guys got to pay attention to. The course is another form of media because it's another way for her to get her message out to the masses and draw in business as well. Are there any other forms of media that you're using?
Probably. There's so many. Well, and so now it's like you
Nikki,
start.
the motion picture.
Exactly. I did just meet with someone who writes scripts.
There you go.
Book to script, the movie coming soon.
I
So
love her.
you just keep adding the layers and repurposing what you do. So before many of us start on social media and you're just doing minimal, kind of here's some static pictures of me, like with my cat, whatever exciting things I was doing.
Right.
Then you step up to video, you're repurposing maybe some of your podcasts. Now it's going live. And so it's mixing that ability to speak virtually, but really reach a larger audience and reach people that you wouldn't reach before. So they don't know you, but all of a sudden, because of the push of social media, now you can reach them as well. So
I love that. Yeah. And that's another thing. Social media is a form of media. So, and then this is why I do this podcast, because I want people to understand that if you really want to get known, you got to branch out, man. You got to. Now, Nikki, before we wrap up here, I do want to give you an opportunity to let our audience know how they can support you, anything that you have going on that they need to know about.
Well, you can reach me on my personal site, thenikkigreen360.com. There you can see pretty much everything, my podcast, what I'm up to, where the events are, social media. And I am trying to get on 100 podcasts before my next book launches.
Well, let's make that
So if you have a podcast, call me.
Look, she put it out there. I like that boldness that you just did there. I like that. And she put it out there, everybody. So if you have a podcast, Nikki Green is the person you need. Not what you need her on your podcast to just like that to make it blow up. So get her on there so you can know what it's like to be a recovering corporate executive. I love that. I know I love that. So Nikki, I want to thank you so much for joining me today here on the Media Boss Podcast.
Oh, this has been fantastic. It's been so much fun, and I can't wait to see more.
All right. Have a good one, everybody. We'll be right back.
Hey, everybody, the Media Boss Podcast has been brought to you by our partners, Pantheon and Convert and Flow. Make sure you get with us so you can find out more about how you can help your business run smoothly with Pantheon and Convert and Flow.